If you've driven on the streets of Kampala, you cannot help but notice the big potholes on our roads. And that has actually gone deep into your pockets. We have also seen some people losing their lives because of bad infrastructure. Today, my guest on the show is General Katumba Wamala, the Minister for Works and Transport. We want to put him on the spot to explain to Ugandans what really is happening to our road sector and in a broader spectrum, infrastructure development. General Katumba Wamala, thank you so much for making time for this show.
Thank you. Thank you, Seranja. Thank you for hosting me, Solomon.
Yeah.
Well, I'll wait for those hard questions.
It's good to have you.
Thank you.
General, for 4 years,
Yes.
you have been at the Ministry of Works and Transport. Can you account for your time in office?
Oh, yeah, I can. With all the challenges notwithstanding, I think we have made some progress. Just as I speak today, we have finally signed the contract to start the construction of the standard gauge railway with Yapi Mackenzie. I think that's a milestone achievement.
It has been long coming, since
been long
2014.
coming. Yes, and I've seen sometimes you have been also making fun of the railway sector. When we launched the Kayola with our meter gauge railway, you brought on the other side the standard gauge from Tanzania and said, what are you doing? How can we be launching a meter gauge when our guys are doing standard gauge?
I mean, Kenya did its standard gauge.
Exactly. So for starters, we have finally come to terms after long back and forth, and for good reasons, because again, we didn't want to be taken for a ride, and we had a lot of negotiations and talks and studies had to be done to ensure that the product we are going to get, there is value for money, and that we are not going to be wasteful in a way, because this is taxpayers' money, and we must ensure that what is being done meets the standards.
So General, just to come in, could you explain to Ugandans what has caused this delay from the time that agreement was signed between the East African leaders back in 2014?
Yes. This is what happened. When the concept was developed, first of all, it was the initial concept was by the president, His Excellency General Katumba Wamala. He sold it to his counterpart, President Mike Kibaki, who now together they sold it to the president of Rwanda and the president of South Sudan. And remember, they went together at Munyonyo, they launched the construction of the standard gauge railway as a Northern Corridor Infrastructure Project, NCIP. Now, of course, the thinking behind, and which was right, is that our main port on the Northern Corridor is Mombasa. And so the standard gauge was to be constructed from Mombasa into the interior, into Uganda, and then with the distribution channels and spurs to Rwanda and South Sudan. Now, because Kenya was the entry point, they started the construction. So they started with the Mombasa. First of all, they did a lot of improvement in the Mombasa port to be able to receive the increasing cargo in and out of the Northern Corridor. So they started the construction, and they did the construction up to Naivasha. For reasons I can't explain, when they reached Naivasha, I think the project somehow stalled. The little we understand is because possibly the cost was running through the sky. The original plan was to have that leg from Mombasa, Naivasha, Kisumu, Malaba. And then Uganda picks it from there, Kampala, then Kampala to Kabale, Kampala to Kasese, to Kabale, to Mpondwe on the border with the DRC, and then South Sudan. Now, when the first leg stalled at Naivasha, by then we were in discussions with our Chinese friends, a company called JEC. And the thinking at that time was that the project was going to be financed by Exim Bank of China. the whole project. So we went in negotiations with the Exim Bank of China. Exim Bank of China became unsure about the viability of the project, because they said, now, if Kenya has stopped in Naivasha and they're having challenges, I think, in meeting the loan conditions, what are the guarantees that Uganda will do the construction? And what would be the relevance? Because you remember, even some members of parliament used to ask me, why are you going to do a standard gauge connecting nowhere? So there was that back and forth discussions with the Exim Bank of China, until it dawned on us that actually, after COVID, from a discussion we had with one of the ambassadors of China, he said, well, post-COVID time, China is re-examining its funding. Exim Bank of China is examining its funding of projects on the continent. So the thing kind of stalled. It was just about 2 years ago when Tanzania, we saw Tanzania had started the construction with Yapi Mackenzie. The president met his counterpart in Tanzania. I think they had a discussion. Then the president, I think, was linked to Yapi Mackenzie. And from then on, Yapi Mackenzie came on the stage. And we're told now, where we couldn't move with China, start discussion with Yapi Mackenzie. And that's why we have done this in the last 2 years. Of course, a project like that one, it's an EPC, it's engineering, procurement, and construction. They'll give us a turnkey project. A turnkey project means Yapi will do the engineering, they'll be the procurement of whatever services, they'll do the construction, they'll provide what we call the rolling stock. Those are the engines, the coaches, the wagons, and everything. And then they'll also put in place a management system, so they'll give us a finished product. So these are the negotiations we have been in, back and forth, to ensure that we really get value for money.
And how much is it going to cost us?
Originally, when Yapi Mackenzie came on stage, they gave us a quote of 3.4 billion euro. We went into negotiations for about 2 months, more than 2 months actually, until we have been able to save about 700 million euro through negotiations. So now the final figure, which has been signed for today and agreed upon, is 2.7. Now Yapi Mackenzie takes the risks of everything in that price, because that's the final price. Whether the cement increases tomorrow, whether the iron bars prices go up tomorrow, Yapi Mackenzie has signed and committed that they will deliver us a project within that price.
And the time? When do we expect this?
48 months, those are 4 years, because there are some complicated structures. For example, we are going to have a bridge, a dual-purpose bridge over the Nile, which will have, we'll be able to take the rail, the standard gauge railway, but also have a provision for vehicles, because as we do the expressway, we may have to have another entry into Jinja using the part of the bridge. So we may not need to construct another bridge. We are going to use the same structure to have two functions on the same bridge.
It's interesting because, so are we going to fund it ourselves after Exim Bank pulled out?
Yes. Now the Minister of Finance is now in the negotiations for the funding mechanism. Yeah, that's a matter.
So we have signed a deal.
I cannot go into.
So, General, we have signed a deal
yes.
with Yapi Mackenzie, but we do not have the money.
No. These things are being done concurrently. As we're negotiating the construction contract, Minister of Finance is negotiating the financing arrangement. So there are banks which are ready to finance this, like Citibank, African Development Bank, because infrastructure development is now a given, especially on the continent. Everybody realizes that this continent cannot develop unless we connect each other, unless we can be able to connect our countries.
Well, I am as optimistic as you are that this time we will have that standard gauge.
It will come.
In 4 years.
It will.
So we should all get excited.
Yes.
I hope we do. But
The launch for the construction will be in about 2 weeks' time, in the month of November.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe before we can leave the standard gauge railway, General, 30% of that contract has to go to local contractors.
40% actually.
40?
We have put it to 40% now. 40%. And this one, Yapi Mackenzie has committed because it's part of the contract.
The reason why I've put this before you is because the Uganda National Roads
Authority.
UNABSEC.
UNABSEC,
yes. Have raised complaints that government gives these big projects to international companies and they don't benefit anything from them. So how are you going to ensure that local content is achieved, that at least that 40% is given to local contractors?
Yeah, for example, one of the things which we have discussed with the Yapi, they should never bring cement in the country because we have enough cement companies. They should not bring iron bars because we have companies which have been ISO certified to provide iron bars. And we have tested this because they have provided iron bars for the Ginger Bridge. They have provided iron bars for the flyover. Of course, a lot of other things, the maram, the aggregates which they're going to use. All this is local content. Local content may not necessarily mean a contractor doing construction, but we are looking at even the services. Most of the services, other than the most technical people, will be provided by the local people, ourselves, yourselves, your brother, my sister. The only caution is that whoever wants to provide service as a Ugandan, you must be committed that you'll provide the quality, you'll provide the quantity at the time when it is required, and you genuinely provide the right things, including your service.
Yeah, I hope, and I think over the years, Ugandan companies have grown to improve on their quality. I know government has been all the time complaining about the quality of work, but I know for sure that there are some Ugandan companies whose quality of work has significantly improved because you've given them an opportunity.
Yes, let's give credit where it is due. There are some companies which are doing quite well. For example, now we are doing the rehabilitation of Busunju Chiwoga Hoima Road. That project is taken purely by a Ugandan company. The rehabilitation of Matuga Kapeka Road, it's a purely Ugandan company. So there are many companies which have been, apart from, the only thing is that many times they're challenged, the Ugandan companies. How? One, organizational capacity. Sometimes you find the company is Katumba, and Katumba, I'm the manager, I'm the financial officer, I'm the engineer, I'm everything. Mm-hmm. So the organization capacity is still somehow lacking in some of the companies, not all. Financial muscle. I think recently you saw a letter from the president saying they should not be requested to give, to provide.
Banks.
Yes, for the banks. Banks asking them for, I think, bills. What do you call them?
Bonds.
Bonds, yes. Yeah. So because financially they cannot match with international companies.
Of course, they don't have enough.
They don't have.
Yeah.
Of course, on the other side also, government has some degree of blame when we take long to pay them. And
that is one of the issues we'll come into, the delayed payment.
Yes.
But General, you stay in this city.
I do.
And you drive on these terrible roads every day.
Yes.
How do you feel that you're the Minister of Works, driving on terrible roads that have even contributed to road accidents? Of course, I feel bad, but I would say this. Do you remember that you passed a law of decentralization? Yeah. Yes, so a lot of services were decentralized. And among them, which were decentralized, were some road network management. For example, the roads in the city are not directly under the ministry, much as I provide the standards of the roads, much as I can be requested or asked to approve the designs. The management and running of the roads in the cities are under the city's authority. And that's why you have a Ministry
of Kampala Capital City Authority. And Kampala Capital City Authority is an authority responsible for running the affairs of the city,
General,
including the road.
General, what you're saying on this interview is that
Yes.
you do not have any powers whatsoever as the Minister of Transport and Works to oversee road construction within the city.
No, I've told you what we can do. We provide the designs, we approve, and we can approve the design. Right? And the standards. We check out the standards. But in terms of which road must be done, which road needs to be repaired, which road needs to be tarmacked within the city, is the city's responsibility. The KCCA responsibility.
I remember I read somewhere in the Road Act, I think it's 2019, the 2019 Road Act, that speaks about trunk roads.
Yes.
And those are supposed to be directly under the Ministry of Works.
Yes.
And those roads, too, are not in good shape.
Like which one?
You have the, I think there was also the Kampala Jinja Road, Nakawa.
Yes. Okay, those are the trunk roads.
Yeah, those are the trunk roads I'm asking about.
Yes, but those ones...
And those are under you.
Yes, those are under me. And because if you talk of Kampala Jinja Road, you know that even as I speak, there's a contractor maintaining that road. The only challenge that road has, and that's why we now the beauty of rehabilitating the meter gauge and also now going into the standard gauge, is that that road is overwhelmed by the volume of traffic on that road. Because it's the artery of trade, not only for Uganda, but even for the region. So it is overwhelmed by the volume of traffic. Now, of course, first of all, its size is not very conducive to modern traffic movement and volumes. That's why we are planning to start the Kampala Jinja Expressway. And that will do will relieve a lot of the traffic pains on that road. So that road has a contractor who's maintaining it, and we are going to have him on what we call a framework contract, that he has to stay on the road and maintain it throughout because it's a trunk road. So that Kampala, Jinja, Uganda, Busia, to Tororo, that's a trunk road. That's,
yes,
that's ministry.
Yeah.
Yes, but it has some bad sections, like now the Mavira section, which has not yet been attended to, but we've been attending to most of the bad sections on that road.
But you leave the responsibility of road construction to Kampala Capital City Authority, and you honestly see that they are not performing. I would have thought that for you as the minister directly in charge of our roads and transport, you'd come in. I mean, KCC does not even have a road construction unit.
No. I think first of all, can we reverse the law? And is it worth it? No, it's not. But also you have to understand Kampala roads. Kampala roads have been for a long time. They have outlived their usefulness because they have lived beyond their capability. Most of them were constructed way back in the 70s, in the 80s actually. When we used to know even how many vehicles are moving from one day to the city center. We would know a motoka ya Haji Sebagala, that one. But now, when you look at the volume of traffic in the city, definitely there's a need for a total overhaul of the road network. And I think the present program, the Greater Kampala Metropolitan Area Program, which is being supported by the World Bank, not only to revamp roads within the city center, but also to construct roads within the municipalities surrounding the city, will go a long way in alleviating these potholes you are talking about. I think just give it a few months. Even the dust which is outside your own studio, give it a matter of few months and the things will be different.
This road is really terrible.
I know.
Najera, Najera 1, Najera 2,
Chirama,
Chira,
Bulindo,
Tuchitukutwe. It is terrible every single time. But I just wanted to focus you back to the city center. Back in 2019, the flyover project was signed off.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be, I think, completed. You've just done the clock tower. We are supposed to do
No,
the
we've done lot 1.
Lot 1.
Lot 1.
When was that project supposed to be completed?
Well, it was supposed to be completed last year. But again, there are a number of things. One of the challenges which we faced in that project was relocation of utilities. Utilities, that's power, water, including sewage pipes and all that, telecom lines. I can tell you that even some of those service providers did not know where their lines were. So it was a big, big issue and took us a lot of time to harmonize our activity together with those service providers, the National Water, the Energy Ministry, the Telecom Ministry, to ensure that we do as little disruption of their services as possible and relocate the utilities properly. So it took us some time.
Those should have been done in a feasibility study.
The what? I'm telling you that some of them, people didn't even know where those lines were until we dig. It's the same problem we have on Usabara Road, for example. One of the reasons why it has also taken long is because of the utility lines.
So when is the flyover for Kitgum Junction or Lot 2 starting?
Lot 2, we are still in negotiations because this was a facility which was provided by the government of Japan under JICA.
Yeah.
JICA provided for Lot 1, and the condition was that they wanted to see how we perform on Lot 1, which we have more or less done and is ready to, once we put the traffic junctions at the clock tower, I think we'll be ready to go. Then Lot 2 starts from Mukwano via Kitgum Junction with a spur to Garden City and another spur going down to ShopRite. So once now we're in negotiations for the funding of Lot 2.
With JICA?
With JICA. If JICA is not willing to fund, then we'll look for another funder. But we are still in talks.
We're still there.
Yeah.
There was another big project that came in from, I think there was an agreement that was signed for the interconnectivity of roads. That was a project that was signed between government of Uganda. I think there was the French as well committed to that, as well as I think the World Bank. It was to a tune of about $3 billion to work on the interconnectivity. I think it was on three pillars: interconnectivity, job creation, and environmental issues, including drainage. At that time, I think there was funding that government of Uganda had to give about 571 million. The World Bank contributed about 556 million. The French embassy, the French development agency, about $42 million, 42% of that. How far have we gone with this project of interconnectivity?
The BRT.
Yes.
The bus rapid transit.
And those are the
which were the 25 kilometers.
Precisely
for the bus from Kireka go down to Entebbe Road and then to Kawempe side. That one, the studies were made. I think the challenge, which of course is still faced with that, is the, you know how Kampala has developed. Everybody has built to the last to the last centimeter. Now, if you're going to create a bus lane, it would mean doing a lot of destruction. You remember even what we had on Entebbe Road when we wanted to get our road reserve. I think one of the property even belonged to a fellow minister, and it was a big challenge. so there is I think that project is still. We have not. I can't say we have abandoned it, but I think it still calls for a lot of studies to see how viable it could be done.
That too hasn't picked off.
You know.
That's crazy because that also increases the traffic.
Yeah.
Traffic congestion. Basically, projects are there. There are all these bottlenecks, you know, from compensation to all these things are not moving generally.
Things are moving. Things are not moving. You see, the problem I think which most of us have, all our eyes are here. Spread out. Get out of the city. Challenge yourself. Go out to Hoima. Go out to Atiak. Go out to Adjumani. Go out to Palisa. Go out to Kapchorwa. Go out to Muyembe, Nakapriprit, and see whether things are not.
But Kampala is the face.
That's what I'm saying.
Kampala is the face of the country. Everyone comes here. When you come here,
and that's why we're developing outside Kampala so that everybody doesn't have to come to Kampala to see the good things. Go to Masaka now and see the roads in Masaka. Go to Hoima and see the road network in Hoima, in the oil belt.
I hear you.
Yes.
I mean, it's commendable, really.
Yes.
It would be absolutely not fair for us not to credit some of the roads that have been constructed. Before, I was traveling on the Gulu-Kitgum road. Yes. It was amazing.
All the way up to Misingo.
Yeah.
From Orio, Gulu, Acholibu, Kitgum, Misingo.
Yeah.
When that never known that they'll ever get tarmac.
It's absolutely amazing. I mean, I've also traveled along the road going to General Moses Ali's place. Adjumani.
Yes. From Gulu, Atiak, Adjumani. Now we are going to put a ferry at Laropi and we connect to Moyo. By tarmac.
That would have saved a lot.
Yes.
The Moyo train. Yeah, I mean, something has been done.
Happening.
But there are challenges too that need to be addressed.
Challenges would always be there.
Yeah.
Without challenges, life becomes a bore.
I know. But let's talk about the congestion in the city. Let me bring you back. In the city, when you drive in this city, you're thinking, this kind of congestion. You know, at one time, I remember you went on the floor and indeed in the media and you said you wanted to even regulate borders. Yeah. And you came up to say there are going to be border free zones.
Yes.
You were very passionate about that. What happened?
What happened? Again, as I said, management of the city is not purely Ministry of Works. We bring regulations, we bring laws, acts, through the acts, we bring regulations, but the nitty-gritty of the management of the city does not fall under my ambit directly. So the reorganization of the city calls for the collaboration with the Kampala's Capital City Authority, the managers of the city. You remember at one point when I was saying we should have border free zones. One of the leaders of the city, before even the words dried on my lips, came up to say, don't touch my borders. This is my city. I know how to manage it. You remember? So, to avoid crashing with the person who was voted by the city dwellers to manage their city, I had to go slow on that one. But it was making sense that we could have zones, and just like in other cities where the borders don't apply. But again, it calls for collaboration. It's not a one-man show. It needs all of us. We had done a lot of studies. We had even guided them on how to create stages, to gazette those stages. We went even
the sensitization.
We went on the sensitization program, even myself. We went out to sensitize the borders, even on safe riding. We even went to the extent of reducing the driver license for the borders to encourage them to have a driver's license. But now, the management and organization of their trade and how they want to work within the city comes on the lap of the city authorities.
So you gave up on that?
I will continue pushing, I'll continue advising, but I don't want to go on a crash path with with my fellow leaders on an issue which we could all sit down on a table and make sense of.
We thought that could happen, where you would sit all of you as people who are in charge.
That's what we need to do.
But you have failed to find that consensus. So this caveat will continue.
But we could find a solution to that caveat indirectly. For example, if we do the rehabilitation of the railway line and I improve on the passenger services, especially morning and evening, which is the peak hours of movement, right? In both directions, to Chengera this side, to Mukono this side, and the train services are efficient. Many people will abandon the borders. We have also had, and we are doing a final study on how we can have what we call the light rail system. Light rail, like what you see in Addis Ababa, that you have a light rail going around the city.
Metros, and that's exactly.
Yes.
There was that plan.
Yes.
I remember when they were launching, I think it was the Kampala master plan. I think at that time it was Jennifer Musisi. There were all metros that had been planned to do, the public transport within the city. So all that, I don't know what. For example, General, why don't we have metros within the city? I'm sure you've traveled in all these countries and you look and admire.
Oh, yeah, I have.
So why don't you do them here?
Pay enough taxes.
But this country has money.
No, not enough to do all that we need to do.
But even with that, we have the master plan. Then phase 1, let us do this. Phase 2, let's do this. Because honestly, General, you see the congestion in this city, the public transport in this city. You ought to do something.
As you are saying, we have the master plan. And we say, let's do this, then we shall do this. As you said, we started with the trunk roads. Why? Because we needed to ensure that we have our trade routes are functional and that we are able to move our traders and our goods as fast and as safely as possible. Now, we have realized that even those trade routes are overwhelmed. So we need to do the standard gauge so that we alleviate the problem of the traffic on the roads. Okay? We have agreed to do the expressways, just like what you saw in Entebbe. You remember at one time it was a nightmare getting to the airport using the old road, Entebbe Road. Now it's just a matter of a few minutes and we're at the airport. So these programs, they don't just fall from the sky, they're planned. You remember that when the oil was discovered, and we said, now this is going to be a game changer in our economy. We have to facilitate the extraction of the oil. So possibly the money which would have gone into doing the state council had priority to go now to the oil roads in the Hoima to facilitate the oil drilling and all that which is being done, including construction of an airport, Kabalega Airport in Hoima.
Yeah.
Yes, all these are your resources. So we may need, yes, there's a lot of demand, and you know that every day now everybody wants a tarmac road in his area.
General, let me just get your attention to, the other day I was looking at, we have buses which are going up country in the middle of the city. You have, Arua Park and all these parks in there. Sometimes you see trailers, squeezing through. We would have thought that all this, if well planned, could have been done better. Maybe because we do not have a public transport regulation. No. General, does this country have a public transport regulation?
No, the conversation you're bringing out is a genuine one. And I think you're expressing the concern of many. But I think, as I've said, and I'll say this again, you need to have this conversation with the KCCA, the city council managers, the ministers, the mayor, the executive directors. They may be having these plans Only that I may not be able to explain them because I'm not directly the one in charge of them. So I think as I've sat here, one of these days organize the same and give them the hard questions
But General,
of how this city
General,
needs to be
you as the
organized.
minister in charge of transport, do we
Yes.
have a public transport regulation?
Yeah, the public transport regulation is within the various acts, the Road Safety Act, the Traffic and Road Safety Act, the Road Act itself. So they're there. They will provide the regulations are there.
I hope so, because with that regulation, you would have thought that some of those things will be clear. No, for example, no trailers should enter.
No, you
certain
see those
restriction. Clearly to sort of place public transport order.
Those can be,
Those
can be ordinances which can be developed by the local authorities. For example, we have sold to them an idea, and we're saying, which is being examined now, and we are saying during the peak hours we should not allow trailers to get into the center of the city, or heavy trucks for that matter.
And that should be in the regulation, not only ordinances.
Including heavy goods.
Yeah.
That they should not come in the city during the peak hours, especially in the morning and in the evening. And then those hours when you have less movement within the city, then they can bring in.
General, do you know why I insist that we perhaps may need public transport regulation? In cities like London, they even charge congestion tax.
Yeah, if you drive in the center of the city, you pay higher.
And you see what's happening. People are riding bicycles in central London, and there's some sort of order. There are buses that enter into the city. They have bus lanes. Somehow public transport. In fact, I think London has the best public transport. You can get into the underground.
I think apart from that, there's the organization, but also there is what should I call them? The personality, the morals of the people, the morals of the society, that they obey order. Don't do this and do not do it. Here, when an order comes, it must be challenged first for somebody to obey. You have seen what's happening now. How we drive on the roads. Are there no regulations, no laws governing the driving that you must drive on the left? Haven't you seen people driving on the right?
I have, including public officials, ministers, and governments. But let me just drive you to another point of corruption within the Ministry of Works and the road construction sector. We know that there are different complaints that have been coming through from different investors, some of which perhaps may never get to your desk, but there are people who are complaining that, you get a contract to construct a road, maybe let's say 20 billion, and then you have to take back 10 billion. You stay with 10 billion to do the construction. By the time you finish the works, the works are, not of quality. There's no way you can explain back that this person needed a kickback and I have to construct. Basically, I'm sure this is unwritten truth that I'm sure you know about. Corruption within the sector.
I will first of all, it's unthinkable that you have a project of 20 billion unless you're a thief yourself. If you had,
just give me an example.
No, if you estimated to do the project for 20 billion and then you take away 10 billion and take it back, and you're going to execute the same project in 10 billion, then it means there's something wrong with you.
But sometimes it happens.
No, that means there's something wrong with you. You see, I can't totally rule out that there's no corruption. I can't. Because that's a cancer which has come into the society, in our society. But if we are going to keep just talking about it and lamenting, reading the lamentation book in the Bible about corruption, and we ourselves also get involved, because corruption is a two-way. There is a giver, there's a receiver. If you're willing to give, that means there's a reason why you are willing to give. You already have a corrupt mind. That's why you're willing to give. Because government has put in place organs of government and even private, which are involved in fighting the menace, in fighting the cancer, in fighting this disease called corruption. If you as a person, you do not have the feel and the guts to say, I will not do this. But that means where you have bribed 10 billion today, tomorrow you're going to bribe 20. And so it will continue and continue. So, corruption may be, as I said, I can't say it's not there, totally. But how do we stop it? Are we going to stop it by just talking about it? Are we going to stop it by not putting our foot down and saying, no, I will not willingly give my money?
But you see, because that system now has been engraved in the works sector.
Because, not works.
Okay, in the road construction.
In the community.
Let's say this.
No.
There are people.
I would not say the works. It's in the total, where do you go and there's no corruption? Where? Tell me. I can only give you maybe one of my areas where you will not find it. Uganda driver license services. You'll not get any. And this one I can assure you. You don't need to pay anybody any coin to have a service.
Because General, someone would say, well, again, you know,
and why is it working?
what it means to
why is it working?
The procurement committee to award a contractor a contract. It's too much that goes on that you know very well.
That's what I'm saying.
Happens because it has now been a culture. It will become difficult for you to get another contract if you do not do it.
That's what I'm saying, because now we have all accepted to play the game.
You put in a good bid. People take time to do those bids.
No, because we have all accepted to play the game, and that's why we are going to get defeated. You remember. And if you have people who are committed to provide a service without necessarily being corrupt, it's possible. I've just given you that example. The Uganda driver license service. You don't pay a coin, but you get served. In 45 minutes, you come out with your driving permit. And we have made it mandatory. If within 45 minutes you don't have your driving permit, you are right to complain. Why is it working? Don't you remember how it was difficult to get a driver's license? Why is it working in passport office? That you don't need to pay bribe to get your passport. Don't you know what it was before?
Yeah, I know in General Katumba came in.
Yes.
He started the process of cleaning the house.
So we can clean our houses if we were determined to. But this business of looking like we are defeated and saying, well, attend and kozentia. We shall. And you know, was it today? I was seeing some, I don't know that is true, on one of yours, the media, is it TikTok or whatever, I don't know what you call it, where somebody gifted a student of P7 with a vehicle as a success card. What message? What message are you sending?
I know.
You have seen children in primary school competing to become prefects, going around distributing sweets. What are we doing? If that child is distributing sweets today, what will he distribute tomorrow when he becomes a PS? This cancer, I think, as a country, we need to have a very candid discussion. How are we going to fight corruption? In our entities, from our minds, how are we going to? Because I agree with you, it gets to unbelievable levels. But it's not, the reason why possibly my ministry comes up, or I mean, because we have the biggest budget anyway. And sometimes, yes, in terms of numbers, but even when it comes to implementation, that budget, you may not find it there.
You find a contractor who says, and he shows you the contract and you're like, wow, you're going to make a hell lot of money. And then he says, well, you know what is going to happen. And then the other challenge, before we started this show, I talked to a contractor who said, ask General Katumba Wamala, why is government delaying to pay contractors? Yeah. I have seen and heard of contractors who have lost their homes because they presented them as collateral in banks. They have lost property.
That's true.
They go quarter one, quarter two, not being paid. The banks are on their necks. The interests are rising because government is not paying contractors in time. Why?
Let me request this. That's the hard one. It's a hard question. I wish you could bring the Minister of Finance here and you ask him that hard question. Because I manage what is given to me. I don't control the release. I don't control how much will come to me as a ministry. Whatever comes to me is what I can manage. But, of course, he also will tell you, we are running a cash economy. What comes into the till is what I pay out. So, it's not an easy, it's a hard question, as you said. Where do you start? It's not that the ministry finds fun in not paying the contractors, of course not, because they keep knocking on our doors every day. And you get stressed. One guy walks in and cries out, can you write for me a letter to the bank to confirm that you owe me money so that the bank doesn't take my property? But then how can I commit myself to a bank? As he walks out, another one walks in and says, my property is under sale today because you have delayed to pay me. These are we go through this every day, and it's not amusing. We have even proposed in one of the meetings that maybe, like now, if we look at our debt for just in my ministry and UNRA, we are in about 1.something trillion. That's a lot of money we owe to the contractors out there. We have even proposed that maybe we should borrow money and pay off once these contractors, and then maybe we find a way of paying a bank which can give us that money. But I'm not a financial manager. I'm not a financial minister. Maybe the finance minister and PSST would give better answers than me on this question, but it concerns me because I'm the one who engaged those people to respond. In some cases, even to emergencies, like the Katonga bridges, the Pakwach bridge now. I tell contractor, get there and do something. I'll pay you. Yeah. And then the money delays.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I was with the team at UNABSEC the other day, and many of them are saying we are sinking.
Yeah.
We're really sinking, especially with limited capital.
Limited capital, the high equipment. They can't pay their workers.
You have to send them home. Remember, equipment, every day it spends on site. Yeah. You have to pay for it. And I
also pay for idle equipment if the contractor is not working for one reason or another.
You can imagine. So it can be really tough. General, let me just, before we conclude the show, I wanted to have your thought on two things. One, you closed Karuma.
Genuinely so.
Genuinely so, because you saw there were cracks and it was it was an accident in waiting. Yeah. The MPs from northern Uganda complained that they are being charged to use the national park roads because it's not our fault. The Minister Works and Transport should actually allow us to use these roads. They felt segregated.
First of all, I was disappointed, and I was able even to talk to one of the honorable MPs. I'll say particularly Honorable Olanya. I told him this is not a question of northern Uganda. It's a national problem, because it's not only people from northern Uganda who ply that route. So many people do. Many traders from elsewhere, they ply those routes. South Sudan depends on that route. So it was not a matter of which tribe, which community is being disadvantaged. It was a matter of national concern. So infrastructure, not all infrastructure is directly managed by the ministry. I crossed Karuma because that's my responsibility. But I don't manage the section of roads in the park.
But you should have provided an alternative.
I did, because I provided 2 ferries on the Pakwach, on the Renkunya Patch crossing. I added another ferry. So I have 2 ferries which ply back and forth. Now, you can go through the same route without even paying if you so wanted. If you take from Chigumba as you are going to Masindi, right? Instead of taking the road which goes through the park, you take Masindi through Kinyara, Biso to Bulisa. You're already on the crossing without paying. Because the section where the UA was insisting on paying was between the park gate and the bridge. That's where the payment was being effected. But this is long. That's long now. It's as of now, there's no paying.
Yeah.
It was changed because, again, what I told the Honorable Lanya, I said, let's logically reason this instead of tribalizing the issue. Let's logically reason. And when we sat down on the table and we logically reasoned it, it was resolved that let people not pay for the 3 months as we work hard day and night to put the Karuma back into use.
What do you make about returning UNRA to the Ministry of Works and Transport?
Well, that's a matter which is still with the Parliament. I wouldn't want to bias anybody's mind, but it's a RAPEX, it's a rationalization process, which I think government revisited and looked at the need for it. Because I think it dawned on government that we are running 2 parallel systems for the same functions.
So do you support it?
Yeah, of course.
You support the return of UNRA back to the Ministry of Works?
I do.
Why?
Because we may reduce on the unnecessary pains which we are talking about, the many centers of decision making, which many centers of decision making also translate into corruption. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. The accountability will be easier because it's under the same ministry. The payment, the pay systems will be sorted out because now you have a disparity from an engineer in UNRA with an engineer in Ministry of Works who went to the same school, did the same course, came out together, but this one gets maybe tens of thousands of, millions of shillings. This one gets peanuts. So these some of those anomalies. Okay. But one thing for sure, and I want to be on camera for this one, we are not dismissing anybody, even if it's the UNRA is coming back to the ministry. We are absorbing practically everybody in UNRA, except a person who will say, I cannot work under the public service conditions. And since there is no forced labor in this country, you'll be free to leave. But whoever is ready to work under the public service terms and conditions, they will stay. General Katumba Wamala, thank you so much for speaking to us. Thank you. It's really been an honor having you on the show. Thank you. All right, thank you. Well, I've been speaking to General Katumba Wamala, who is the Minister
for Works and Transport on the show. I'm Solomon Serwanja. Thanks for watching. And this is The Hard Questions.